Rock and roll will never die because people need it and people want it. It's a culture thing. It's an escapism. It's something to enhance your mood, something to make you happy, something to make you sad. It's something to turn to when everything else is going to shit. It's something to hold on to. It's something to give you belief. It's something to fire your soul, stimulate your imagination, transcend you to a different place inside your head, inside your mind. It's the answer to a lot of questions. A lot of people say that rock and roll can't change the world. It absolutely can, and it absolutely has, and it will continue to do so. People will always want rock and roll, more so than a lot of other things in life. The truth.
It's not just a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll. It's the longest, most hardest, roundabout fucking way to the top if you want to rock and roll. And even at this point, it's like, fuck, it's a long way, but we'll get there, you know. We'll keep going. That's all we know how to do. I found out recently I have ADHD, so that would explain my erratic behaviour when I was a kid. I listened to AC/DC all the way through school. I didn't pay attention to the teachers at all. I just couldn't. I was made to face the wall a lot in class because I would either throw things or swing on my chair or just be doing something that would upset everybody. Land Rhythm section had a song called Boogie, and that song got me into rock and roll. Then there was a channel in Australia, a music video channel called Rage, and that's where I saw AC/DC doing Thunderstruck. Those two things were pretty much, oh, I love rock and roll, and I just focused on that. I think my decision was made when I was around 6 years old. When I first saw Thunderstruck and when I first heard the Land Rhythm section, I just knew that was all I wanted to do. My whole life became that. I wasn't a kid with posters on the wall. I didn't do any of that sort of stuff. I wasn't really fan worshipping things. I was obsessed with it, and so was Ryan in a way that we would go to the school library. So at school, we just ignored everybody. We ignored everything we were doing in class. We ignored. Never did my homework. It was just I couldn't be bothered, or I was playing my guitar. And we brought our instruments to school. So instead of kicking the footy around at lunchtime or just sitting around at lunchtime, just doing nothing in the quadrangle, we went into an art room and just played all afternoon, and we just became obsessed. My first guitar, Dad said, for my first electric guitar, he said, if you paint, all summer I had to recoat the wood on the back room of the house, and there was a cabin, so I had to coat the wood because we lived by the sea in Warrnambool. So I painted the whole cabin in the back room, and Dad said, look, I'll buy you an electric guitar if you do this. I finished it, and he said, it's 2 coats. So I had to go back and redo it all again, but then eventually I got my first electric guitar, Gibson SG, and that was it. I just wanted to have a guitar. I had an acoustic, but you know, just from listening to the music I was listening to and watching the videos, I knew an acoustic wasn't the end game, that there was this other thing called an electric guitar, and fuck, it looked fun. And then as soon as I plugged it in, I think I just played an A chord, just listening to it for at least a month, just hitting an A chord going, fuck, this is powerful. We saw Midnight Oil playing on the back of a truck doing this, to the Exxon building, and that gave us like, oh, I see Aussies can go overseas and fucking stick it up, people. This is going to be fun. This is what we're doing at school, you know, and this is what we're doing with our neighbours who kept calling the police on us when we were at home because we were playing really loud, like we were setting up Marshall stacks, you know, in the house, and warnable, like you could hear it. The whole town could hear this. Having the police come around and having the law coming against us, having an Irish background that is a pretty colourful history. There's quite a few rebels in the past. There's a DNA that's in our system that is a gypsy blood. There's a rebel blood in our veins. And every time we would be playing and someone would be like, you can't do this, and we played a battle of bands, I got on a table, I did a solo, fell through the table, it smashed in half. The guy that ran the event took us out the back and said, how dare you do this to the event? How did he like pushes us up against the wall, and Ryan and I were only kids. This was a fucking grown man, and at that point, we didn't even like look at each other. We just fucking went the guy, and just, it was like pit bulls, and it was, this is what we're fighting for. And it became this thing, a saying that we had, stand up for rock and roll. And that was like the first song we ever like wrote.
If my 15-year-old self could see me now, I'm not sure that she'd believe it.
I don't give in, I don't give up, I won't ever let it break me. I'm on fire, I'm a fighter, I'll forever be the last one standing.
There's such a difference between believing you are capable of all these things and then it becoming a reality. You know, I know so many people and so many friends that are so incredibly talented that never ever get these opportunities. I feel very grateful, and yeah, if 15-year-old Lizzie could see me now, it would probably blow her little mind.
I'm on the edge of the war, I'm holding on, hanging by a thread.
The day that I realized that this is all I wanted to do in life, is be in a band, was actually the day that we had our first gig. My little brother and I, you know, we had picked up instruments at this point. I was 13, he was 10. We would write these little songs together, you know, and we wrote this one song called Love is Power, and we entered ourselves in a talent show. It was at the Schuylkill County Fair. So it was like hay bale tossing, and there was a tap dancing cowgirl, and a little girl that sang Tomorrow, the Little Orphan Annie, and little brother, on our way to the gig, suggests that we don't just go up there as Lizzie and RJ Hale. He's like, well, we should have a band name. I'm like, well, we're not really a band. He's like, well, we should have a band name though. So we came up with a couple things and settled on Halestorm. So we named our little project Halestorm. We're like, that'll work for the day. And we go up there, we introduce ourselves, and we play this 5-minute song that we wrote with a drum solo in the middle of it. And I had like this Moog synthesizer sound on a keyboard. And I just remember we were so nervous, we were like shaking, but we did it anyway. And then when we came off stage, it was like this light bulb turned on. And I turned to little brother, I'm like, do you want to do this again? Like I think we're supposed to be here. I think we're supposed to do this. And so I remember specifically being at the dinner table that night, and I'm coming up with all these plans, and I'm telling my mom and dad, I'm like, this is what I want to do. I think we could actually like be rock stars. We could totally do this. And little bro we're eating the chicken and mashed potatoes, and he had like a mouthful of mashed potatoes, and he looks at me, he's like, sis, I still get to play drums with you though, right? I'm like, yeah, man, we're a band. And so literally 22 years later, we're still doing the same thing. When I was a kid and we'd be doing gigs and I'd be carrying in my equipment and somebody would be like, oh, that's the girlfriend that's dragging in her boyfriend's equipment, or hey, the merch table is over there, or when we were trying to shop for labels and they would look at me and be like, you're talented, but we don't know what to do with you, you know, and or you're trying to get something on the radio, and they're like, well, we already have a girl on the radio, so we don't need another one, like I'm just a token. Every time that one of those things happened, I would turn it around. So if nobody was expecting me to be on stage, I started from the audience. I would have my microphone on and a hood, and nobody knew where the sound was coming from, but then I walked up and they're like, oh, it's a girl, and she is in the band. When the labels said, we don't know what to do with you, I'm like, well, that's ridiculous. I'm gonna do it anyway. And when, nobody would play my songs on the radio because I was a girl, like, well, I'm just gonna tour my ass off. And you are gonna be so sick of seeing my face that you're gonna have to play me on the radio someday. So you use those things as your superpower, and it drives me through.
My purpose in life is to play music. I started to play the guitar at 4 years old. I was the baby of 5 brothers, and their music was very prominent in the household. I was raised up in a church, and the love of the music began to start then. My brothers finding out that I wanted to be involved with music, and they began to show me the do's and don'ts and began to mentor me. Picking up the guitar at 4 was very, very simple, very easy. It just came very natural, and picking it up like the opposite way of what people normally would pick it up in was very normal as well. Mind you, I write right-handed and play left-handed, so there's some ambidextry type of stuff happening there, but it always was, there. I think the music gene was already there and embedded once I came in the world. So it definitely is a trait that was passed on, all the way from my grandfather and grandmother and mother and uncles and aunties, and it's music involved in a lot of people's lives in my family. So it came quite easy. And, once I began to get turned on by my brother through other inspirations and influences such as Stevie Ray, Hendrix, Robin Trower, Clapton, Eric Johnson, people like that, Frank Marino, Muddy Waters, Albert King, Wes Montgomery, different facets of different people. Then that's when the heavy woodshedding began to start, because I was fascinated and I was inspired. It would be night after night and day after day, woodshedding on what I thought that was some of the best stuff that I ever heard. say by 8, 9, 10 years old, I knew that this was what I wanted to do. And short of that, I actually wanted to be a truck driver like my father was. And, you know, this kind of popped up.
You gotta help yourself.
We did this Battle of the Bands show in Memphis, Tennessee. And I was about 12 or 13 at the time. And we got like third place some kind of way. And everybody thought we should have got first place. We skipped a year and came back the next following year, and we won both days. So in that group of judges, there was a producer that was one of the judges, and he came to us before the announcement of who won and said, win, lose, or draw, I want to sign you guys to a production deal. And at 15, that's how it came. And before I knew it, it was 13 major record labels and, you know, writing songs, and in the studio we went. It was all overwhelming, but it was really something that I wanted to do. Meanwhile, at the same time, I was a very active member in my high school marching band. So I would be at school till about 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening at marching band rehearsal, and then I would leave there and go to the studio and record all night. So touring was kind of tedious because we tour on the weekends, and I'd be back in school on Monday for school until the summer came. Just on a whim, I, you know, tried some cocaine at one time, and, you know, I lied about it and said I'd been doing it before because the person that I asked for it from said, man, you don't do this. And then I said, yes, I do. I've been doing it already, but I was lying. So I think that that was one of the worst decisions I ever made. But then, you know, everything happens how it happens, you know. At that point in time with the second record, the record company president at the time, and I was somewhat devastated, so it made it that much more easier for me to get drawn into a dark world, because the label president, after recording the second record, he said that he didn't like it, go back in and record it again. So at 17 years old, I was kind of heartbroken that after all this hard work that had been put into it, the guy flew us to New York just to tell us, I want to tell you in your face to record it over again. So from there, you know, I began to hanging out in the street life, and, you know, and things began to escalate.
I remember as a really young girl, a buddy of mine, Mario, he was so rad, a very talented guy, he's still a friend of mine, and we were in school, and he said, so, you know, what do you visualize? What do you see yourself doing? And all I visualized was me sitting behind a mic, playing a piano in a little dive jazz club, and being a real old woman and having a cigarette and smoking a cigarette and singing. And so that did it for me. That was the fulfilling dream to me, because it wasn't based on the level or money or however many people come to see you. It was based on not quitting and getting to be an old motherfricka, still doing one of the many things about being alive that I love. And one of those things is singing and making music. So I started writing way before I started singing. My first recital as a little kid, my sister Sharon brought me up to the piano at Mrs. Davis's house, where she'd have her recitals every year. And that was the first year I started working with Miss Davis, and I was 4. And I'd written some music on piano. And she said, okay, instead of playing that song, Mary Had a Little Lamb, which, you know, boring, why don't you just play a little thing that you came up with? I don't write it, it writes me, you know. I'm seeking out for some kind of guidance and answer. And there's something about songwriting that it really does write you, it shows you the way, you know. And if I try and use my big fat ego to show it the way, it's always something crap or lackluster or some kind of denial hiding. But if I am willing to let that go and just go with wherever it takes me, I find that it gets closer to the truth and really is a great tool for healing. The list of what there is to be grateful for and happy for is so much longer than what there is to be sad and brokenhearted over. But I think that sometimes it's easier to believe the lie, you know, misery loves company. My darkest time was really in my late 20s, where I really don't think I had any hope left. And I was just too chicken to take myself out. I had these really false attempts at killing myself, but if I really wanted to, I would have. And I think that it was Scott, my husband, who, I don't know why, I mean, really even know if he knows why, he stayed in there. He says that he knew there was something in me that wasn't completely gone, and that he had seen her once and he was waiting to see her again. And even if it meant he'd wait forever, he'd wait forever. I think part of what's great about being alive, whether you're an artist or not, is embracing the fact that this thing is supposed to take you up and down. It's supposed to get you lost and give you moments of thinking you're found. But it's a beautiful ride, especially when you let it take you. I've never felt like I can sing like my heroes, and to me, my heroes really can sing. But I just like the way it feels more than the way it sounds, if that makes any sense. It's almost like I could compare it to crying or screaming at somebody. If you're angry and you're raising your voice, you feel like you're getting it off your chest. And if you're sad and you're crying, you feel like you're getting it off your chest. And I feel that way with singing, like I'm just getting off my emotions off my chest, and I like the way it feels. The great joy is just having something in life that you wake up to and you can't wait to start doing it that day. It doesn't get better than that. That's the success, is doing that which brings you joy.
I was 14, and I told my mother, I know what I'm going to do for my life. I'm going to be a blues guitarist. And I have never looked back. I have never deviated from that path. The guitar really gave me a life. It gave me a purpose. It gave me a means of saying things that I was unable to say with words. Some of the abusive, violent situations that my childhood was filled with, the guitar was my escape, it was my sanctuary, and it still is. When I begin to play, I'm transported to a place that is very hard to explain, and it's a place that only I can understand and only I can experience, because it's my own private and personal retreat from any type of trouble in the world, but it's also a place of great joy and happiness and fulfillment. I wrote a song some years ago. I was looking at my old Stratocaster, which I don't bring on tour anymore, but I realized it had been with me through homelessness and drug addiction and alcoholism and divorce and living on the street, and I wrote it a love song. And my old girl, yes, I know you, we've been down this road before. And as the years have come between us, you've never asked for more. I've seen you age so gracefully, you've never turned your back on me. And under your spell, I always will be. And yes, I know the gift you've given, asking nothing in return. You've been there through all the living and the lessons I have learned. That's what it means to me.
I can write about anything, really. I mean, the great thing about being a songwriter is that storytelling, or you pick something that has happened to you, and I kind of do all the above, really. Never Win, for example, on the new record, that's personal experience. There's a lot of, this is probably the most honest record I've ever written.
If the stars all align in the clear night sky, would you let me in? If your heart was a home, wasn't made of stone, could you let me in?
It was one of those songs that I literally wrote within 20 minutes. It's very personal. It's just, I think the most personal and honest songs, they don't take long because it's all there. It's just you write it down on a piece of paper. I had the melody already. I was laying in bed, stupid o'clock at night, and I just had it.
If I work to the bone, pay for all we own, would you let me in?
I actually went into another room and stick the phone on and kind of recorded what I'd done. I woke up the next morning, and like I said, it took me 20 minutes to write, but it's a strange one. It was the last song we recorded on the album, but when it got sent over with the demos, Colin Richardson and Chris Clancy, the producers of the album, because I sent the demo over so raw, they were quite reluctant to do much different with it, overproduce it and stuff. So basically we used the vocal, the demo vocal that I did, it's actually on the record, so it wasn't re-recorded. The same with the piano and everything. We added better sounding strings and stuff, but they were so bowled over with it. They just said, let's not mess with it, just enhance it.
It's like hide and seek, but you won't find me. Can't you let me in? The one I wanted most, all remains is your ghost. I will never win.
They felt they captured that raw, whatever you want to call it. So I know the boys they weren't reluctant, but it was like, it's such a big difference compared to the rest of the albums. Like, will that fit? Will it work? So it was brave of the boys. It was brave for the producer to say this has to be on the record. I'm so glad we did because it's caused a bit of a stir. A lot of people are saying good things about it. But that glass ceiling was smashed to smithereens with the band, and it's the reason why this album's called Point of No Return, is because it's got to the point where we have to start thinking slightly differently, keeping the raw sort of Crow DNA, but thinking outside the box in order to evolve and reach those places perhaps the Crows wouldn't have. So it was a real brave decision, and like I said, I think it was a good decision.
I will never win. I will never win. I will never win. I can never win.
One of the most poignant songs for me, and probably the one that means the most, was a song off Divine and Dirty called Watching Over Me.
They say time is a healer, but it seems so long ago.
My dad was always my biggest inspiration. He got me started playing the guitar at such an early age. He was my very first teacher, and he was actually my bass player in my covers band for many, many years, to his unfortunate death.
I look to the sky.
Pretty sudden. He was relatively young at 54 years old. It was quite unexpected, and it had a big effect on me.
For the times that I'm sad, for when I stray from the path.
The whole experience of his death and having to get through that grieving process was kind of my inspiration behind what I'm doing now. It changed how I viewed the world, it changed how I viewed life. It made me think a lot more about that you just don't know how long you've got, and you know, you really should go for things. Don't put things on a back burner.
watching over me.
My first love has always been music. That was always what I wanted to do. When I started writing songs again, Watching Over Me was pretty much the first song I wrote. I needed to get out a tribute to him, really. You know, he's the reason that I'm sat here doing this. He's the reason I get to tour the world. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be doing that. I'm not a spiritual guy. I'm not religious in any way. You know, it's kind of, it's not really to be taken literally, but you know, you do always have that thing there that you hope they are looking down on you. You hope they're keeping an eye out.
I look to the sky and I hope to see your face. Just one more smile, just one more time.
He would be so proud if he got to see what I was doing now. He always had this thing where, you know, he felt like I should be doing music. He felt like I was born to be doing this. You know, Watching Over Me is a song that so many people can relate to when I play it live. I always get people come up to me after the show and be like, that song, I like every time, as soon as you hit those first couple of notes on the guitar, like it makes me cry. Like every time, I can't listen to that song without crying. And it's like, you know, it's nice that that song can touch people in that way. You know, I didn't write the song to make people cry. That wasn't my goal, but you know, it's something that affects us all. You know, losing a loved one, it's a very unfortunate part of life, and you know, I'm pleased that my song can relate to so many people.
It was a little bit of desperation, opportunism and sort of circumstance got me started. The mid-1970s in England, it was just pre-punk rock and it was sort of a dire time, you know, in the UK. My job prospects were threefold, mainly the building trade, because that's what all my family were in and my dad was in, and I'd grown up around building sites. One would have been a professional footballer, and as I was only borderline good enough for the school team, I didn't think I was going to make it as a professional footy player. So the third one seemed to be rock star. I went home and asked my parents and they bought me a guitar. After a little bit of nagging, my mum nagged my dad. My dad didn't really think it was going to be a profitable career. So, and then but fair enough, he ended up shelling up 35 quid and I bought a black Les Paul copy. The guitar, you know, has always been kind of like a companion to me, like since I can remember. I don't really remember a time before there was a guitar for me, but I'm not one of those guys that just obsessively sits at home and plays and plays and plays and ad nauseum. I mean, I can find it a little boring. I think it's that moment when the music, when it's good, you know, can infect me with words. You know, I couldn't write a lyric. If you paid me, I couldn't write a lyric. I don't think there's enough money in the world to get me to write lyrics. However, I can talk for days if you get me going. I'm a chatty northerner, but I think that music allows me to express myself possibly emotionally. I like to think that I put a lot of feel into what I play. I'm a feel player. I think the music that I've written hopefully has some emotional content and some of my real DNA. It's written from more like my heart and my gut than it is from my head. Music when it can just give you a feeling, and it sort of transcends words, and it transcends rationalization. And if you can create something like that yourself, or experience somebody else's music and makes you feel like that, and it takes you to another place, I think that's the greatest gift that music can give, and has done for thousands of years.
I first picked up the guitar, I think, at around age 4. Now, I didn't have an actual, real, bona fide electric or acoustic guitar, but my grandmother was buying me these little plastic acoustic guitars with nylon strings on them. And so, I actually learned my first notes on the guitar, like, things like Mary Had a Little Lamb and Ode to Joy and, Smoke on the Water and things like that on those guitars. I don't know, I think I was just always drawn to the instrument itself. I think the expression, the emotion that you're able to put into playing the guitar, I think is probably what initially drew me to it. And also the kind of music that I liked. I was really drawn to blues and rock, and in those genres of music, there's always generally a featured guitar solo. So I think all of those things combined just really attracted me to the instrument. And at age 7, I got my first bona fide electric guitar, albeit a very cheap one, but a good starter instrument. And that's when I really started, doing the proper wood shedding and putting in hours and hours and hours every day of learning how to play. For any person, it takes a lot of practice, and so I think the difference becomes, how much of a labor is it? Is it like real laborious where you're like, I gotta do this again? Or is it like you look forward to the practice and you look forward to the mistakes and the challenges of not being able to do something, and then working until you can do that, and then moving on to the next goal. For me, that's what it was. It was a labor of love. And so rather than running around doing whatever the rest of the people my age were doing, my choice was to be inside my house, in my bedroom or in the living room, for hours at a time playing guitar. The guitar has always been a form of communication for me, where in some situations, maybe on a personal level, I might be a little bit shy or reserved, but when I put the guitar on, all of that stuff kind of tends to fall away, and I find that I'm much more at ease and much more able to express myself. And so it's always been an outlet for me in that regard. And so, I feel like there's another side of me that's able to come out with a guitar that maybe wouldn't necessarily be exposed otherwise. Being able to play music is one of the most profound experiences that I've ever had in my life and continue to experience. But I remember as a kid, once I learned how to play, I remember like my biggest fear would be like to wake up one day and not be able to play music. So it's, it's a way to communicate, it's a way to express yourself, it's a coping mechanism for life, it's therapy, it's all of these things, wrapped up in one instrument, and I would imagine that the guitar has been responsible for me navigating certain aspects of my life in a sane manner that maybe otherwise wouldn't have worked out that way.
It's a very rare thing to make a living doing what you love.
Well, you made me weep, and you made me moan. When you caused me to leave, child, my happy home. But someday, baby, you ain't worry my life anymore.
Drives me to do what I do, and I wouldn't have been able to answer that question 20 years ago. Like, I think I was kind of on autopilot, you know, just thinking I'm in a band, okay, that's cool, and taking it very much for granted. Now, later on, I realized it's a very rare thing to make a living doing what you love and being able to support your family and see the world and make friends all over the world while having fun. So I've become very protective and defensive about it. But really what I love doing, despite the fact that sometimes I hate it, not hate, that's not the right word, get frustrated by it, is trying to write a story in a song. I'm not a terribly good guitar player. I'm still learning, but I think, and I get kind of mad at the guitar, but I never really get mad at the piece of paper. It's always fun to sit there and just imagine things, and you have a license to tell these stories that some are complete fiction, some have a little bit of truth to them, and put it into a pot, and here's a song. Taking something unknown and making it known is a great satisfaction. But the muse is a fickle mistress, to say the least.
We're here because we fucking love it. We're here because we have to rock. There's a thing about guitar that when you first pick it up that I guess there's a few stumbling blocks and people will just give up. And I'm the same with other things like, I don't know, maths. I give up with that. That's why I got an iPhone. You know, that's what we used to say to teachers at school. Has got a calculator. Good luck teaching me maths. Now we've got iPhones. Anyway, another subject. But playing guitar and you're like, you know, you're sitting there literally with your, you know, you put it on your lap. It feels a bit foreign and you've got this plectrum pick thing and you're trying to get your fingers on and your fingers sort of hurt, you don't know what you're doing. It's just like riding a bike. If you really want to do it, if you love the feel of the wind in your hair, my fucking morning bed hair, if you love the wind in the hair and that feeling of adrenaline going down a hill on a bike, at some point you're going to learn to ride that thing and get rid of the training wheels. It's the same with a guitar. If you love the sound of just one chord, an A chord, and it's just like in your head, you close your eyes, you imagine yourself on stage, you've been watching concert videos. We used to watch All the Monsters of Rock, and you know, you only know one chord, but you're like, there's 100,000 people that I'm going to get to one day. There's just a power to it. It's an addiction. It's like chocolate. You just can't get enough. You grow up as a kid, I want to be a fireman, an astronaut, you know. A lot of people don't follow through with that. I want to play rock and roll. It's like, sure, but you know, one day you'll grow out of that. And then, but you don't. You don't grow up and you just play rock and roll. And it's particularly in this day and age, you know, there's a lot of roadblocks, a lot of red tape. There's a lot of doors that are shut that you have to kick in, and there's a lot of times when you're out in the cold and that's kind of it. think what drives a band through all of the bullshit, through all of the, you know, what we call the last 10 years of the music industry has clearly been the Great Music Depression, which a lot of people in this industry have referred to as, and the ones that have survived all have one thing in common. We're here because we fucking love it. We're here because we have to rock. We have to rock to live. If we don't rock and roll, we don't live. And it's a lifestyle. And a lot of bands we started out with that aren't here now, and a lot of people work in this music industry just aren't here. It takes a real love for this. It's not all, you know, you can't. Anyone says I want to be in a band, you know, you get the girls and get the private limos and get the, you know, all the, you know, the private jets and stuff. You know, it's not just a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll. It's the longest, most hardest, roundabout fucking way to the top if you want to rock and roll. And even at this point, it's like, fuck, it's a long way, but we'll get there. You know, we'll keep going. That's all we know how to do. I'm at my happiest. There's a few places just sitting with a guitar. When I know that we've got the whole room just right there, and we've given everyone, or when the room's gone from being right, we're up for it, to the point where we can feel the energy from the crowd, and we know that we've given them something real special, and that they're going to go away. We feel the buzz. That's when I'm at my happiest. When I'm running around the footy oval with my dog, when I'm home with my fiance and my dog, and when I'm sitting on an aeroplane, high above the earth, just with my headphones on, listening to fucking, you know, listening to what I want to listen to, which is usually something in the AC/DC catalogue, and or, you know, live on the laptop. I never do the screens on the plane. I always bring my own gig and then get the Johnny Walker Blacks, get pretty pissed, and then just sit there and you know watch an AC/DC live at Donington. It's fucking amazing.
It's you! Are all alive! Rock and roll!
Growing up in Wales, you either played sport or you did music. As a kid, I mean, music was everything. You ask my family and friends, it was always drummed into me from a kid. My dad was big into his music, his country music in particular. But then growing up through school, we had this super supportive music teacher. Myself and Ronnie, just sadly he's not with us anymore, but that man was inspirational. And when it came to like jobs and stuff, it was always just to pass it by, you know. You get a job just to earn some money, but the goal was always to be music. Fingers crossed, touching the wood. That seems to be working now. I guess I found out I could sing when I was around 4, 5. Like I said, my dad, always music in the house, he was always singing. He was a singer-songwriter himself, so him playing guitar and stuff. So I'd always kind of sing along with him really, and improvise and come up with new parts. And so little did I know it, I was kind of learning my craft, practicing with him. I owe him a lot actually.
Oh, 'cause it holds you as you
music, it was just everywhere in Wales. All these little bars, all these little jam nights around the area. As far as kind of Swansea, Cardiff is concerned, exactly the same, but Bridgend in Porthcawl, as kids, that's all we used to do, is just watch these sort of, the older sort of generation, watching them at these jam nights and then getting up and jamming with them. So we kind of learned and honed our craft watching them, you know. So the old school sort of bands, AC/DC, Zeppelin, and learning all that, listening, watching. But I mean, the music was incredible when we were kids, still is. Still a great scene in Bridgend. I'm very lucky to be in this band because there's always ideas, always fresh ideas on the table. And it doesn't matter who brings it, you know? As long as at the end of it, it sounds like the Crows. 9 times out of 10 it does. What is success? It's funny actually, it's an opening line in one of our songs. Success is just a state of mind. What you think is successful will be completely different to somebody else's version of success. Ultimately, it's happiness. What you find comfortable doing, what you enjoy doing, what you love doing. I think that's the goal. If you can do that full time and sustain that, that's success. It doesn't have to be about money, it doesn't have to be about being popular, just finding that success within yourself, you know. That's all it's all about, man. That's all that matters.
When I'm on stage and I see other people singing my songs, it's like it's no longer mine, it's theirs. What drives me? I think that when I hit roadblocks and sometimes things get dark, I do suffer every now and then from anxiety and depression, and sometimes in my head it'll kind of feel like white noise, like you don't know what voice you're supposed to be listening to, if it's even yours. And when things get that way, or if somebody looks at me and it's like, it's not really working out, or you have a fight with somebody in the industry, or you're trying to prove yourself, I end up reminding myself that every single time that happened growing up, and every single time that it does happen, I have the ability to turn that into my superpower and almost use it as a weapon. It's a beautiful thing to be a part of somebody's life, even the people that you have never met, to feel that connection with somebody, to have helped somebody in such a small way or a big way. It's such a beautiful thing. It's kind of a two-part thing that goes on in my head, whereas on the one hand, I don't necessarily concern myself with the opinions that other people might have of me, be it good or bad. Like, they can think I'm amazing. Sure, thank you very much. You could hate me, but all that really matters is what I think about myself. And so I hold that close, and I separate that, because I'm not cool. I've never been cool, but whatever it is that I represent for these young kids and these young artists, or this amazing mass of people, is something that they identify with and that they need. So I feel like it's a responsibility, yes, but it's such a great thing, because I'm able to pass the torch, to take all of those things that maybe you were struggling with, and then make it into some kind of hope, and then pass that on. And it's such a beautiful thing to be a part of. I'm very lucky and very proud to be in that position.
I can't sleep, I can't think
I wasn't very academic, to be honest, and to play the guitar was something I enjoyed. I'm Phil Campbell. I played the guitar with Motorhead for 32 years, and now I play in a great band with my kids called Phil Campbell and the Bastard Sons. I never wanted to do a 9-to-5 job, which I did for 6 years, from driving for my father's delivery company. You know, I was grateful for the job then when I left school, but that's all I wanted to do was have my time be my own in the daytime. The guitar to me, it's like freedom in one way, because there's no rules in art. You know, you can take it where you want, really. The guitar is a lot of fun to me. It's work as well. You got to work to craft good songs. There's always something going on in your head, a melody or a tune. You've got to get it down before you forget it. And sometimes you think, it's nothing, and then next day it's in your head again. Like, it's quite torturous, but it's great, you know. Until something gives me a lot more joy than that, I'm gonna keep spending my time with a guitar in my hands.
It's the drums. I love to play drums. From a very early age, as soon as I sat down on my first kit, I don't know, I was at that point just almost turning 16. I got a job at a shoe store, a children's shoe store, and I sold children's shoes. And I squirreled away my money, and I bought my first drum kit. And as soon as I sat down on that kit and I started playing along to Black Sabbath, I knew this is it. This is exactly what I want to do. Mr. Freedom, big time rumble, thank you very much, but no. Seeing the Bad Brains at the 930 Club, seeing Stevie Ray Vaughan at Merriweather Post Pavilion, seeing the Allman Brothers, you know, all these things are their inspiration, you know. I had the opportunity to see Elvin Jones, one of my very favorite jazz drummers. I was able to see him many, many times in the early 90s, and every time was both an education and an inspiration. Thank you very much, but no. This is what I love to do. There's very few other things that I'm good at. Not to say that I'm a good drummer, but I can do that, and I very much enjoy it.